guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashena and this is Ashena's Nail Artistry, and today we are going to talk about the perfect powder to a liquid ratio. So to learn more, stay tuned. If you are new here, take a minute to go subscribe to my channel. If you are a beginner nail tech or you just want to learn more about nail basics, this is the video for you. I am going to zoom into my table and we are going to see what we can cover today. For today's video, we will be using our polymer, and that is the acrylic powder called the polymer, our acrylic liquid, also called the monomer. We are using our dampen dish, our paper towel, swat sticks, and my size 14 Osaka Kolinsky sable brush. So this is what we're going to be using today. So let's talk about what it means to have a liquid powder ratio. So liquid and powder is basically what you would compare to cement and water, right? And this is required for acrylic nails. It's acrylic powder and acrylic liquid. Now to get the proper bead, you have to have a good ratio of liquid in your brush and powder that you pick up with your brush. If your brush is too wet, you are going to have a bead that is runny. If your brush is too dry, you're going to have a bead that is dry and unable to spread. And then if you have a perfect bead, then you have a perfect application. Let's just go over that using the swatch sticks. I've already added some acrylic liquid into my dampen dish. And I am going to wet my brush. Always saturate your brush, get rid of the air bubbles, make sure that you're always working with a clean brush. My brushes are always clean on my desk, so whenever I get to use them, I just pull them off and saturate them, and I am ready to go. That is the best way to go if you are, especially if you are a busy nail tech. You do not want to be spending how much time cleaning your brush at every minute, okay? So acrylic powder, this is what acrylic powder looks like. It might look different depending on the brand, depending on the manufacturer. Some powders are more fine than others. Some powders have glitters, but all powders should, or I would say, work the same way. You must have acrylic liquid for you to be able to get it to make the nail. Okay. Also, let me just say, even if I said this is like cement and water, acrylic nails is not as hard as concrete, okay? So don't think it is as hard as concrete. So let's talk about what it means to have a wet bead. A wet bead, and this is something that a lot of nail beginners struggle with, is that they don't really understand what it is to have a perfect liquid to powder ratio. And let me start with the mistakes that a lot of us make. Myself included. When I started, I had that problem as well. So I will not pressure anybody. I'm just helping you to make your application better if you are interested in nails. So I am saturating my brush here, and a lot of beginner nail techs, they do not have a dish like that. They might be using one of the like what we will consider to be the shot glasses to put acrylic. I would advise you to invest in a dampen dish. This is a 5-pot one, and I use this one on my desk. But there's also the 3-pot one. If you want to start off, you can start off with the 3-pot. It's 1 large and 2 small ones. This one, I use the big one on my desk because I like to be able to alternate between pots. Okay, so I go ahead and I wet my brush. Now, I have to remind myself not to wipe my brush because it is custom for me to wipe my brush. It is like an automatic response. Whenever I dip it in, I wipe it. So I'm going to try to remember not to wipe my brush for this wet application. So a wet application would be a super saturated brush. You see, like for example, you can see the liquid dropping from the brush. This is what I mean by a brush that is too wet. You see what is happening here? It is going to start to droop and it will literally fall off the brush. See that? It is starting to curl. It will fall off the brush. This is too wet. Let's do that again. wet. You see, I'm trying to remember not to wipe my brush, because I'm wiping my brush, I'm taking out the liquid in it, so I'm not able to show you exactly what I mean, but I'm going to try that again. So this is a wet. Okay, this is a perfect example. You see what is happening here? You see what happened? This is too wet, and this is not good practice. Do not make acrylic come in contact with your skin. I'm only showing you for the purpose of the video. Acrylic should not come in contact with your skin, and it should not come in contact with the client's cuticles either. So this is a wet bead. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to dip in, and remember not to wipe. I'm going to pick up a bead. I'm going to bring it up to the camera so you can see what I mean by a brush that is too wet. See what is happening here? It is going to drop. This is too wet. Now let's talk about one that is too dry. Too dry meaning when you dip in your brush, you wipe it too much. So you wipe off the liquid, too much of the liquid, or you take off the liquid from your brush on your paper towel, and then you try and pick up a bead. This is a dry bead. This will not apply to any nail. This is an error right there. Let's try that again. You go ahead, you dip your brush, you wipe, or some people, they wipe on their paper towel, and then you try and pick up a bead. This is a dry bead. This will not apply. It will not work. There is not enough liquid in the brush to do what it needs to do, so you can apply it on the nail. Now let's talk about the perfect bead. So the perfect bead means that there is just the right amount of liquid in your brush as there is the amount of powder that you pick up. Now there are different sizes of beads, meaning there is a small bead. This is a small bead. This is a small bead. This is a medium bead. Medium bead. Large bead. Large bead. Okay? Now it depends on the amount of time you keep your brush in the liquid or in the powder. That will determine the size of the bead. But we are not doing that today. We are just talking about the perfect bead. So right now I'm dipping in my brush to get the perfect bead. I'm going to wipe it on once on the side of my pan, and then I'm going to dip it on the other side for me to get the perfect bead. As you can see, it is not moving, it is not falling to one side, it is not dry. You can see that it has that glossy thing on it, and it's going to stay that way until it starts to harden. As you can see, it's starting to harden, so it's getting more and more matte. It is not as glossy anymore, and at that point, it's because I'm showing you for the video, I would have already applied that to the nail. If I try to apply that to the nail now, it will not adhere to the nail because it has already started to dry. See, it is already kind of sticking on my brush. It's a perfect bead. It's a perfect bead, but it started to dry. Okay, so let's do that on our swatch sticks. We are going to do a perfect bead on our swatch sticks. Now, getting the correct powder to liquid ratio takes a lot of practice. To do nails properly takes a lot of practice. It's a lot of repetitive work. If you do not have a passion for nails, you will struggle trying to get it right. If you have a natural passion or a likeness for nails, you will not mind, but it takes a lot of practice. So I'm going to dip in my brush, wipe on the side, pick up a bead, and I'm going to lay it. As you can see, I put it down, and it is not going where I don't want it to go. It is staying where I put it until I mold it. It is not running to my sides. And this is a small to medium bead. I'm going to take a much bigger bead to finish this nail off. So this is a much bigger bead. I'm going to put it on here, and if you notice, I am putting my hand, angling the finger downward. Gravity helps a lot with nail application. If you're trying to avoid flooded cuticles, ensure that the client's nails or your nail is pointed downwards. So gravity helps the bead to flow naturally down the nail. You can see that? Okay. So this is a perfect bead. Now let's do a dry bead. We're gonna wipe this off excessively, and we're gonna try and pick up a bead. This is a dry bead, and we're gonna try and put this on there. And as you can see, this is what happens with a dry bead. It is only going to crystallize because there is not enough liquid in the brush. There is more powder than there is liquid, and it doesn't have enough to cause it to melt, fuse together. This is a dry bead, and for an extra wet bead, or a bead that is too wet for an application that will cause you to flood into your cuticles, I'm going to do one. Remember not to wipe my brush because it's a staple for me. I do it automatically, so I'm remembering not to wipe my brush. I'm going to dip it in, and I'm going to put it on here and let it go. Do you see what is happening? Do you see that? Again, acrylic should not touch your fingers, not touch your skin. I'm only doing that for the purpose of the video. Do not put acrylic on your skin. So this bead is too wet. So from the time I put it on there, the bead would have already flooded into the client's cuticles. And as you can see, I'm trying to literally take off the little knobs that is on the side from where it ran. And if you do it that way, you are going to build a weak nail. It's not going to be a strong nail, and it will lift because the ratio is off. Okay, so I hope that was helpful for you guys, so you can learn the difference between a wet bead, dry bead, perfect bead. Wet runs along the side walls, doesn't give you enough time to manipulate the bead. It goes where it wants to go, not where you want it to go, not where you put it. And that's for the wet bead. For the dry bead, it is going to look terrible. It is going to not form properly. It's going to be lumpy and bumpy, and it's going to crystallize before it actually sets, and that is going to lift. It's going to frustrate you. Now this bead is a perfect ratio bead. It has the right amount of liquid as well as the right amount of powder to the mix, so I'm able to get a smooth ball and I'm able to apply it nicely on the nail. Reminder that all polymers, meaning the powders, are not created equal. It have low quality powders as well as high quality powders. So it's a matter of preference, what you choose to buy. Not all acrylic liquids respond the same way with acrylic powders. It is best to use the monomer and the polymer of the same brand than to mix them up. But if you do, you have to learn how to use them together because it might not react the same way. So it's always good to test your products before you use them on a client. Okay guys, so I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you learned something today. If you have not yet subscribed and you like this content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. I am Ashena. This is Ashena's Artistry. So I hope you like it. Leave a thumbs up if you like it. Leave a comment to let me know what you think. Let me know what you might want to see in the next video. Okay guys, bye.